What's poppin', everybody? This is the cartoon kid, Ray Rollins, and today, for my Modern SpongeBob review, I'm gonna be dipping into season 12, and I'm gonna be talking about the episode called Sandy's Nutty Nieces. Now, you guys know the routine, man. Before I start breaking this episode down, I'm gonna have to give y'all that episode breakdown. So this episode focuses around Sandy's nieces, obviously, right? Now, Sandy's sister comes to drop her kids off, and Sandy's building them a present. But she's like, man, I'm not finished with their present yet. Hey, SpongeBob, can you babysit my kids? SpongeBob's like, hell yeah, man, I got you. And he basically takes on the duty of babysitting her kids. But Sandy didn't tell him, or well, SpongeBob didn't let her tell him, that her kids are a whole bunch of hellraisers. Kids, I meant nieces. Y'all know what I meant. But SpongeBob thinks he's got this, right? So he tries to start off by reading them a story. The nieces are like, nah, we ain't having that. We like to wrestle. So they end up getting in a ring with SpongeBob, having them a little wrestling match. And man, they were beating the absolute yellow out of his body, man. After they get done smacking him around, Sandy basically tells him, yo, take him out and show him around town. Take him to a nice fun spot in Bikini Bottom or something, you know? So SpongeBob basically does that, and throughout the whole entire episode, we basically see SpongeBob trying to babysit these rowdy ass kids, taking them all around town to the Krusty Krab, Goo Lagoon, and I really want to say there's another place I'm forgetting, but they end up going to his house at the end where they end up messing with our good homie Patrick Star. As they're visiting all these places, they're just wreaking mayhem, man. So that's pretty much the summary of the episode. I'm going to discuss more of that in the moments. My first thought of this episode as I was watching this is like, man, Sandy had nieces and we're now finding out about this shit in season 12? But you guys already know how cartoon logic and the cartoon world works. So I dismissed that immediately. And my actual first thought was, damn, Sandy's sister looked exactly what I thought she looked like. Listen, I know I wasn't the only one who expected Sandy to have a fat ass sister, okay? And I don't mean PHAT fat. I mean I done had too many goddamn packs of cinnamon rolls fat. That was one of my first thoughts of this episode. But getting down to moments, man, Sandy's nieces are exactly what I expected them to be like. Hell, if you came up to me and told me you're like, Ray, what do you think Sandy's nieces, or even Sandy's siblings, or anyone in Sandy's family would be like? I tell you, man, shit, they're probably rowdy, they like karate, or they like some form of fighting. They're feisty, man. You would expect them to have somewhat of the same personality as Sandy herself, right? Of course, Sandy being an adult right now, obviously she's not as rambunctious as her nieces, but hell, if you were to tell me Sandy would act like that as a kid, I'd believe you 100%. I absolutely love when they were wrestling SpongeBob, and all three of them were just beating the absolute hell out of him, okay? That was a funny moment to me, but not as funny as the whole moment at the Krusty Krab where they end up playing dress up with all the condiments in the Krusty Krab kitchen. They end up spraying SpongeBob with a ketchup, and SpongeBob ends up looking like a square Mr. Krabs. I just love the whole moment where SpongeBob basically noticed it, and he does the whole thing with the pictures and the Mr. Krabs laugh. I thought that shit was hilarious. They also end up hitting Squidward with the mustard. He ends up looking like SpongeBob. And then Mr. Krabs ends up coming in there, seeing the two. He ends up laughing at him. And they spray him with, I shouldn't say spray, but they end up making Mr. Krabs look just like Plankton. And Squidward's like, ha, you're your own worst enemy. I thought that was pretty freaking hilarious, okay? That's SpongeBob and its mindless comedy, man. The next thing that I want to talk about is their relationship with Patrick. So Patrick's at SpongeBob's house, and he's trying to watch SpongeBob's TV, but he don't know how to turn it on. So once SpongeBob gets there, he turns it on for him. And listen, we can go through the whole debate of classic Patrick versus modern day Patrick. We're not going to do that here. All I got to say is that behavior is not reminiscent of classic Patrick. But I'm going to excuse that because I just love the whole dynamic between Patrick and the nieces. Patrick is over here trying to watch the show, right? And it happens to be a show that the nieces all enjoy. So SpongeBob goes in the kitchen to make some brownies. And Patrick, you know, he ain't trying to fuck with him. He's scooting closer and closer to the TV. And the nieces, you know, being kids, are trying to mess with him. and they're trying to get a closer view of the TV while they're at it. So they ended up trying to sit on Patrick's lap. Patrick tosses him off so he can get a better view of the TV. The nieces aren't too fond of Patrick after that. So they're gonna, do the normal little kid thing and want to mess with them more because they notice that Patrick ain't messing with them. So they end up launching him out the chair, causing him to fly through SpongeBob's roof, and obviously end up coming back down on top of SpongeBob, messing up the brownies. They try sending them off to Glove World to, get them away, but Patrick comes back with a whole crew of people from Glove World to watch the show with him. They even get mad enough to try to wrestle our pink starfish homie, but Patrick ends up distracting him and prevailing in a wrestling match, and he gets a brownie too, man. So listen, I just love that whole dynamic because we all have nieces or nephews or even siblings who are younger than us. Obviously, they're nieces and nephews. Yeah, they're going to be younger than you. You would think. Let's stick to the whole sibling factor. If you have a younger sibling, maybe a younger brother or a younger sister or whatnot, oh, you better believe they're going to do almost anything that they can to get on your nerves when they can. Kind of like the nieces were doing to Patrick. And just seeing that made me think of the whole dynamic between older sibling and a younger sibling, man. It was just awesome and funny to see how Patrick handled the situation. And he did it in a comedic manner that didn't involve the nieces getting hurt. That whole situation probably could have been written a million different ways, honestly. And if I was a writer on the show, I don't know how I would have written that whole scenario between Patrick and the nieces, but I felt like it was played out perfectly. I also have to mention the whole ending of the episode where SpongeBob basically brings back the kids to Sandy's treat home. And she has their little present for him. He's like, yo, man, I didn't tell you the first rule of babysitting my nieces, and that's don't babysit my nieces, man. Because as this episode demonstrated, they're nothing but a bunch of hell-raising troublemakers. She ends up sending her nieces back to their fat-ass mama, and that's the end of the episode, man. But I will tell you this. My overall thoughts of this episode is, for this to be based on a story that revolves around Sandy's nieces, I feel like it was played perfectly. Listen, like I said earlier, man, if you ask me to describe the personality traits of anyone in Sandy's family, I would kind of be unsure what to tell you, but as far as kids go, for them to be a relative of Sandy, you would kind of expect them to be a kid version of her herself. And that's what her nieces were like, man. They were basically kid versions of Sandy who liked to roughhouse and cause mischief. Now, I'm not sure about the whole mischief-causing part of Sandy herself, if she was like that as a kid, obviously. But with the whole roughhousing factor, of course, yeah, I definitely picture Sandy to be the roughhousing type as a kid. Can I see her being a mischief causer or a troublemaker? I'll say maybe. I say that's a big maybe. But SpongeBob trying to be the fun uncle, trying to show them all the fun parts around town, letting them beat up on him in wrestling matches, trying to make brownies for him at his house. Listen, SpongeBob is doing everything SpongeBob should as a nice fun uncle, man. He's trying to go above and beyond for these kids, even though they're causing them hell, man. And that's what you can expect from SpongeBob. Patrick, as I said, their dynamic with him was absolutely awesome. I don't know how I could have written that if you were told me, yo, put Patrick in a storyline with these three kids, rather. I don't know how I'd write that, man. I feel like it was done perfect, had a nice little twist of comedy to it that, like I said, didn't end up with the nieces and getting hurt. I love the whole scene with the wrestling match and their arm wrestling, and Patrick ends up getting the win, man, and he gets a nice little brownie and whatnot. I thought that was hilarious. The nieces end up getting mad as shit after that, and that's when they go back to Sandy and tell them, oh man, this is a horrible place, because they lost their wrestling match with Patrick. I thought that was funny, man. Overall, this episode was supposed to be comedy driven, which it was. It was definitely comedy driven. It was an enjoyable watch. Was it one of the best episodes of SpongeBob? Of course not. No. But I do feel that this was a very moderate episode of SpongeBob. I don't think it's bad in any facet. I think it's pretty enjoyable, especially if you want to sit back and watch an episode of SpongeBob where you can get a nice, decent laugh out of. And I have to say that it's pretty interesting to see some of Sandy's relatives, man. I love when you get more in-depth into a character and their family And I gotta say too, man, I'm excited as hell that they got the new Patrick special coming out. That will definitely be one of the shows that will be reviewed here on this channel for sure. I absolutely love stuff like that. My rating for this episode is a 7 out of 10, man. Not a bad episode at all. Honestly, it was a very good episode. You know what? It's so good that I'm going to have to bump this up to a 7.5. I'll give it a 7.5 out of 10. It's not the best episode. It's not the worst episode of SpongeBob. But that has been my review of SpongeBob SquarePants Season 12 episode, I forget the number, Sandy's Nutty Nieces, man. As always, drop your opinions and whatnot down in the comments box below. And check out any future videos coming up. And until next time, I will see you guys when I see you. Peace out, everybody.